I'm starting to believe the Brits must really love Grimgor. It's the only explanation for why they would change him once every 6 months. What was it first? A massive buff with his change start location in Immortal Empires. Then another one with Forge of the Chaos Dwarves by giving him a Tier 5 capital. Then the latest one, where he gets the highest hero capacity of any character in the game through Nurgle. Even I think that's a bit much, and I'm as big of a green fan as any. By the time this series is finished, it wouldn't surprise me if Grimgor just starts with endgame armies with no upkeep. Because what is the world if not Grimgor's?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Costin here with a discussion about the Greenskins in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Hope you like that little intro because it is unquestionably true with respect to Grimgor. And I guess the question of this video is, how do you improve upon perfection? Because the Greenskins are certainly one of the strongest races in the game. Their capability of steamrolling the campaign map while still maintaining some degree of challenge compared to, say, Warriors of Chaos makes them almost unparalleled as a race, from my perspective. The community at large, based on racial polling, does not quite agree with that, though I imagine there are several reasons with respect to it. I think it has less to do with the actual race and more to do with how people feel about the campaigns of the Greenskins. Because as hilariously powerful as this is, suffice to say that not all Greenskin campaigns share the same quality. A lot of people don't particularly much care for Azag, for instance, as a campaign. A lot of people don't care for Warzag or Skarsnik. In fact, those campaigns in the Legendary Lord polling for Greenskins did very poorly. And because of that particular situation, it is probably incumbent on Creative Assembly to fix those Legendary Lords one way or another, or to introduce more uniqueness. One of the great things about Thrones Decay is how it really changed the campaigns for Karl Franz and Gelt. And in point of fact, based on the Legendary Lord polling for Karl Franz, people do consider it the best campaign of the Empire. And it's not necessarily something I agree with fully. I do enjoy playing Gelt more, but I can certainly understand the argument there, and it's not one I disagree at all. It's just I find the Gelt's campaign pretty damn hilarious, but yeah, I'm a big Karl Franz guy, and it's nice to see him being the very best in a lot of ways. Like, in terms of campaign potential, he is the very best, undeniably so. But with Greenskins, like, Grom is the only campaign that's anywhere near as good as Grimgor, and his campaign does suffer from a climate situation, specifically with temperate situations, so that would be something they could change to make it a better campaign. Maybe add even Frozen to the mix, so basically climate situation is something that they could improve on for Grom. But he is certainly a unique lord, he does have unique mechanics, and he does have a really fun campaign. It's just that climate frustration does limit replayability and does limit the amount of fun. It is fun to a degree to bash your head against the Empire when you've got so many penalties in a campaign, but that kind of loses its charm. I certainly have enjoyed Grom's campaign, and I would recommend everyone do try it out. As for Grimgor, let's just say being able to recruit Black Orc big bosses in all provinces as a faction effect when you have Tamarkan right next to you is a biblical level of power. Now, granted, I didn't use that in this campaign. What I used was the load save character system in order to load up a bunch of lore choices that would be able to have that Tamarkan defeat rate. But even if you don't do that, I mean, it is a natural expansion path to go after Tamarkan as Grimgor, and in point of fact, he's gonna be coming for you because he starts at War with Kolic. He may win against Kolic. I think more often than not on Legendary he will come for you. So Grimgor's campaign works, but I do feel like all the campaigns in general could use more uniqueness. How could they accomplish that is a real question. Well, let's consider a couple of things. The first thing that Creative Assembly can and honestly should redesign would be the research tree. The research tree does certainly offer a good amount of power for the Greenskins, but the issue as it currently is that it's very front heavy with a lot of the really good technology and scrap upgrade abilities available at the start, and a lot of the things later on just not really being that worth it. I mean, it takes you 80 turns, so 100 turns in total to unlock over here to the biggest Waaagh, but a lot of the things that you get right here just aren't really that important. Like, who cares about corruption or diplomatic relations? Or even income from sacking and looting settlements. It just isn't really that meaningful. And it just ends up feeling annoying as a result of it. What I would do instead, personally, is that I would do this. I would create 3 separate trees. Cast dwarves, Nurgle, regular dwarves have multiple trees, but 3 separate trees. One for goblins, one for orcs, regular orcs, so orc boys, archers, all that. One and final one for savage orcs, as well as all the various monsters, though maybe not all of them. So, for instance, you could have the goblin tree with artillery, the monster tree and savage orc tree with things like trolls, arachnoids, giants, etc., and squigs, and all the upgrades for that, and then the orc tree would obviously be having all those orc boys and various upgrades, and maybe even specific upgrades for the kind of lords to lead those armies. Because the issue right now with the tree is, like, yes, there are various upgrades for different units, but fundamentally speaking, the goblin upgrades are significantly stronger than anything else. One of the reasons I almost never use orcs, or at least low tier orc units, is like, why would I? Like, basically, the upgrades that you can get for orc archer boys or regular orc boys pale in comparison to the significant upgrades that you can get for goblins, goblin archers, night goblins, etc. But even basic goblins and nasty skulkers do benefit immensely from the upgrades that you get. Combine that with the goblin tide skill that you can get from the goblin for the goblin shaman, and you effectively end up in a situation where the goblin horde is genuinely the best early game playstyle. Later on, you do want to switch it up, but still. And doing the research tree like this could also help a lot with Legendary Lord variety, because, for instance, while I am not a fan at all of unit restrictions, and this is one of the reasons I think Skarsnik's campaign doesn't work, so those restrictions should be lifted even for him, because he can only recruit orc units from one single settlement, which makes his campaign worse. What CA could do instead to encourage varied playstyle would be to give a research benefit for different factions, dependent on what their focus is. Like, Azak could stay like the general all-purpose guy with just a flat research benefit. Grimgor could get a research benefit for orc units, especially black orcs, but black orcs are big guns. Orzak for the monsters and for the savage orcs. And, well, Brom already has significant benefits for goblins, so maybe he could just be, you can have the cauldron. Furthermore, with regards to Greenskins, the second thing beyond research tree would be their lords and heroes and how those should be updated. Because right now, with the exception of the Black Orc big bosses, who have a special skill line, the other heroes do not. And the fact that Grimgor can get Black Orc big bosses from every province from turn 1 and could combine that with Harmakon's trait is ridiculous. So basically, heroes need an update, but so do lords. You only have 2 lord choices that are worth it. Like, basically, not-goblin war bosses are never in any way worth recruiting, because they're supposed to lead not-goblins. But the problem with not-goblins, they don't have the same kind of goblin upgrades. They don't have the goblin tide skill, so they actually, and nor could they use that skill, so it ends up actually being useless. Like, that's one of the things I would update. Like, give us a reason to use night goblins, and it has to be a survival benefit, not a damage benefit, because damage, we have plenty of that. I mean, yes, you could use, some things like death juices and all that available for night goblin war bosses, but the ambush benefit is not significant in the absence of stock stats, which, by the way, Skarsnik should have, and exclusively him at the beginning of a campaign. Now, maybe if you do confederate lords, other legendary lords, and maybe this is general purpose, you could get their climate and you could get some of their faction abilities. Like, not all of them, but maybe a portion. Like if you confederate Grimgore, you could get like the Black Orc, big bosses, all provinces, for instance, but not the upkeep campaign movement range benefit, for instance. That is an argument I could make in this situation. But for regular Orc War bosses, they need a special skill line to be more useful, and they need benefits for the boys. We want benefits used for the boys. And maybe a new lore choice would be for all the monsters to lead, like trolls, giants, squigs, all that. So that's something I would change in terms of heroes and lords. But speaking further with regards to heroes, one of the things that's actually annoying with heroes is that you have two different mages, or quote-unquote mages. You have shamans and night goblin shamans. And with Tamarkan's defeat rate, you probably want to recruit both of them. Jeez, like the amount of stuff that I have here is ridiculous. But with the exception of Tamarkan's defeat rate, basically, you just want to go for orc shamans, as many as possible, because obviously without Tamarkan's defeat rate, its hero capacity is limited, even for the Greenskins. So I almost never get goblin shamans. Why would I get goblin shamans when I have goblin great shamans that I want to lead an army? So that's one of the problem that Greenskins do have. And I think like what I would do is separate the orc shaman and the goblin shaman hero capacity. Having from the same structure, fair enough, or maybe have them from different structures, that's not what's important, but have the capacity be separate. One increases shaman capacity, one increases goblin great shaman. We don't know what other hero they'll add, but that's one of the things I would do. Now, don't force us to build another structure, because that would be genuinely annoying. Speaking about structures, with respect to Greenskins, their provinces do get dull to manage, because you don't necessarily need a lot of barracks, partly because your goblins are so powerful, and really, even if you need the barracks, you just get the nasty skulker, and you have so much recruitment capacity in every single province that essentially you can recruit an entire staff very damn quickly in a single province. So a lot of these recruitment buildings, with the exception of increasing hero capacity, are kind of meaningless. You're not even necessarily building them for the units in other provinces, except a couple of them, for any other purpose than increasing hero capacity. So you end up doing the same damn things over and over again. You get the pile of shiny stuff, you get the raiding stashes, and you either get control or you get growth if you still need it. Most of the time you'll get growth until you get a province to tier 5, so yeah, that's pretty dull. Give us choice of buildings with different effects. So maybe the military recruitment buildings should have some other benefits rather than just simply freaking recruiting units. I mean, some of them do, but most of the basic ones don't. And yeah, like it's like, oh, you can increase recruitment capacity or local recruitment duration for trolls. It's like, who gives a shit, basically, more or less, on that subject? Like, that's not meaningful. Like, increasing global recruitment capacity for sure, but that's from a provincial capital, right? So yeah, I would say and only 5% research rates, I'm going to say it bluntly, that's not worth it them. Like, maybe increase that. So, like, the advanced military buildings do give that, but the regular buildings should as well. Like, just give us some reason to have more variety of buildings, which can lead to more variety of unit recruitment, all that. And maybe change how we recruit squigs, because I almost never bother with squigs in a campaign. Not because I think they're horrible, but because, like, why would I waste a building slot on that? Like, one of the great things about the Empire is that you do have a reason to go for a variety of buildings. Same with the dwarves. Like, same with Nurgle, really, after their rework. So I think, like, that would be useful for the Greenskins. Final thing that I do believe that the Greenskins could genuinely use would be a change to the Waaagh system. I know we got a major change to the Waaagh with their rework, but we do need updates. And my issue with the Waaagh is just how dull it is. Like, you have a system, like, basically what you do is you build up a bar very, very quickly that gives you significant benefits, and then you declare a Waaagh on a target of your choosing. I don't think that's how the system should work. Now, the previous system was far worse because obviously it was individual armies. So I think it should be a global system depending on battles. It should take longer to build up. But once you build it up and you're continuously fighting battles, it should turn more into a case of like, okay, you're fighting battles against X-rays, you're going to get these kind of benefits if you're fighting against X-rays. And you could have take a page, if you will, from take a page from the regular dwarves with their grudges, their legendary grudges. Yes, I know copying systems is something CA doesn't want to do, but like, yeah, Greenskins would want to burn down Zarnagrum, for instance, as a long campaign objective with significant benefits. As an example, they would want to burn down the stunties, all those kind of things. So like a lot of the benefits you get, like the trophies you get, should be more like, should be not dependent on the faction strength of the faction you're dealing with, but should be instead dependent on you completing those kind of objectives. And maybe add some dynamic objectives as well to the mix. And on top of that, one of the things I would say the dwarves did really well, again, I know it's copying what the dwarves did, but it's just an inspiration. It doesn't have to be copy-paste. But one of the things the dwarf rework did so great, far more so than the Empire or Nurgle, which is why I consider the dwarves the best race in the game right now, is they created a system with Age of Reckoning, Grudges, Confederation, etc., that incentivizes longer campaigns and rewards them. That's one of the things that I think Greenskins do need, because their campaigns, they're powerful, they're awesome, etc., but you steamroll so quickly, so easily, that it does get boring. Dwarves have power, but their campaign dynamics are so interesting and compelling that quite a few people, including myself, do enjoy it. So a kind of system inspired by that, but of course appropriate to the Greenskins, I believe would work very, very well. And maybe we could talk about not just a faction Waaagh, but also a global Greenskin Waaagh. Not quite cooperation. This, like, it's gonna sound silly saying that the Greenskins should take a page from the Chaos Dwarves, but one of the things about the Chaos Dwarves that's great is that you're incentivized when you're playing a Chaos Dwarf campaign to actually ensure that none of the other Chaos Dwarf factions actually gets wiped out. That they're all doing decently to some degree because you can guarantee Confederation. Same with the Dwarves, of course, so you have those kind of incentives. So I think that's one of the things the Greenskins could benefit. Now, you can say, well, I can just march over there and crump Skarsnik and get his entire empire. Sure, but that's a silly system. So maybe that kind of confederation, maybe you could have a global system of Waaagh where the Greenskins as a race are building strength with devastating effects. Because that's kind of like what a major Waaagh is. Like, you'd start with a small Waaagh, and then you'd build up a faction Waaagh, and then you'd build up a global empire where all the Greenskins unite to purge the world. Because that's what they would do. Hell, that's what they did in the end times under Grimgor, for the most part, not all of them. So incentivizing both competition, but also some level of cooperation would be great. That's one of the great things, because you're competing against each other, but at the same time, you do care about how the others do. And you're trying, like in the Kastorf case, you're trying to prove who's really the heir of a shoot. In the case of the Greenskins, it would be who's the biggest and the baddest. I mean, Grimgor should be, of course, the biggest and the baddest. If Grimgor is not the best Greenskin campaign after the rework, I'll be disappointed. I mean, he's already the best by far right now, and I think it will be very, very hard for anyone to compete with that. I mean, mind you, when you add the Legendary Lord, it can be fun and interesting. Like, Elspeth certainly is fun and interesting in a lot of ways, but still keep an existing campaign as the best. People will still buy the DLC. A lot of people do like Elspeth, but more people like Karl Franz, so that's what I think CA should do with Grimgor as well. And that would be about it. I know there's a lot of things to think about. Some things that people may like, some things that people may dislike. These are just some ideas, some thoughts that I wanted to lay down on the table with all my experience playing them, to make them a more interesting, dynamic, and compelling campaign. And I would dare say that there should be a consideration to nerfing certain things about them, because, yeah, certain things are ridiculous. But honestly, I'm not fond of the idea of nerfing things. I think, like, instead of approaching things from, like, what can we remove? The question is, what can we add to make them more fun and interesting? Power doesn't mean a lot to a significant portion of the player base. You have, in the Legendary Lord polls and the race polls that I've done, the people who have won and the races who have won haven't just been the most powerful ones. Yes, plenty of the most powerful ones have won, but that's not necessarily what people care about. There is certainly a crowd of people online that will always argue about the power gap, but Malachi isn't the best lord of the dwarves because he's the most powerful. He's the best lord of the dwarves because he has the most dynamic and interesting campaign. For the Empire, Karl Franz is considered the best not because he's the most powerful. Far from it. Gelt is significantly more powerful in a lot of ways, both battle and campaign, but Guild came out in 3rd place. Again, power does not dictate everything. So I think that's why I think CA should be worried about. But add to it, refine systems, create better experiences on the campaign map, more dynamic campaigns. Make us play these campaigns more. Like, that should be, like, if I was in CA right now, I would write this on a massive wallpaper and put it on the wall in every single room. For anyone designing a campaign, I would say it, make the campaigns fun. That should be the overriding principle. And fun in the sense that they're long, good, and we want to keep coming back to them again and again and again. So regardless of what CA should do, it should be based on that fundamental principle. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.